Turns out he's a major cinephile.
They don't watch enough movies. It's a very simple formula.
And here we go. Well, hey there, friend. How are ya? How's the weather and all that? Come here often to this movie and TV show review podcast? Well, if you are either a long-time listener or if this is your first listening experience, either way, welcome to Nick Nack Goes to the Movies, the one-stop shop destination podcast for all of your media review needs, especially if those needs involve horror, Disney, or superhero things. And as that is our bread and butter, the latter of those three will be the focus of our show today or tonight, whatever time of day or time zone you're listening to this. And while we are all very excited for the Black Panther sequel, viewing it and getting my take on it, we'll have to first see how the future of the DCEU, now rebranded to just the DC Universe, is after the leadership and many other changes that have recently enough transpired. So let's take a peek. We can see this is the latest film to come out from DC Comics in live action, Black Adam, and the only one from this year, after all those ads alluding to this being their year. There was like 4 movies supposed to come out this year. It's been way since the summer of 21 since the Suicide Squad came out, for reference. So it has been a bit of a weird letdown, let off for anyone looking for more DC film live action content. But The Rock has been working on this role and this movie for like a long time. So let's see if this can kickstart the other superhero company to keep them rolling with the MCU. Or potentially, is this just another strained and pained step to keep this live action universe afloat before another try again rebrand? So who's in this? The fun of movies and actors is we all have different favorites and inversely ones we don't really like. The right or wrong actor for each and every one of us can either get us into the reclining theater seats on a random Tuesday at a Marcus Theater or wherever you view them, or instead can keep us far away from the comfort of a theater for months on end, relying on repeat streaming service horror flicks or whatnot. So for Black Adam, it was a superhero movie. That alone meant I pretty much had to be there. But outside of this fact, there was one more reason I had to go see this. Now, you look at this actors who's in this movie on this list. Most of you are going to say, well, I know who The Rock is, leading man from the hit HBO Max show Ballers, the other bald, muscular man in the Fast and Furious movies, the You're Welcome Disney song singer Maui, or the CGI Scorpion in the early 2000s sequel, The Mummy Returns. He's had a super long career, but no, that is not why I had to watch this movie for his superhero debut. I still really haven't touched on this podcast nearly in depth enough of how much I love James Bond movies. We've done an episode that was partly on the last one, No Time to Die, so one day we'll have, I don't know, like a whole month or months of just a slew of them. All 25 Eon ones. I really can't convince myself to do the other two, although I have seen Never Say Never Again, also with Sean Connery. I just don't need that when I have the original Thunderball, but, you know, Never Say Never, again, haha, see what I did there? That's their dumb wordplay from their movie title too. But enough about dumb wordplay. And while I love every James Bond actor, George Lazenby's fine. I will always have more of a connection to Pierce Brosnan. He was the first video game Bond for me from Nightfire, as well as one of my favorite movies of the franchise, which also has Sean Bean, GoldenEye. So yeah, him reprising one of my favorite and cooler Justice League Unlimited characters, Dr. Fate, I was all in on this. But outside of those two, The Rock will always make an impact on any movies, and especially where he's the lead. But no one else really did anything for me. The 2 younger Justice Society actors are more or less there to fill out the roster, along with a brief Henry Winkler cameo as the original Atom Smasher. Very funny. Love a good shot, or love a good short or long role from him. I mean, the Barry stuff. Never forget, though, the fun of his short Scream role. Aldous Hodge as Hawkman has some moments for sure. He's the leader of the group, which makes not a ton of sense for me. Feels like it could have and should have been Dr. Fate, but Hawkman comes off probably intentionally, but still like a whiny guy who can't see how, like, the morally gray the real world is. But unlike Superman, who when played by Cavill has a great sense of hope and optimism, he never comes off as, like, super annoying like Hawkman does all the time here. And The Rock, Black Adam, his tethers to the mortal world and helping people is still tied to Adriana Tomaz's archaeologist role and her son. And while it makes sense, you know, making a big part of this whole thing based on having like a surrogate son, some of those scenes were just so blah and painful and cringy AF. And we'll get into this relationship with this family of characters and Black Adam as the episode goes, but believe me, I have some thoughts. Not as bad as the Wanda and Doctor Strange ice cream song. Nothing is that cringe, but we will have some moments to discuss around it. And last but not least, the actual comedic relief, not the kid or The Rock or Adam Smasher, Mohammed Amer's Kareem as the friend and funny guy of the mom and her son. Like, all of his jokes outside of like the first bad one with the rockets pretty much land. So they knew what they were doing some of the time with this movie. While it seems like I'm pretty much watching Black Adam just for Pierce Brosnan, my favorite James Bond, based on at least nostalgia, spoiler alert, I am, and your assumption is right. But there are other things this latest DC Universe superhero movie brings as well. The question for you is, how much do you like The Rock or Pierce Brosnan? Because those two aspects will pretty much determine if the first DC Universe movie in over a year will be worth the watch for you and how much you'll like this movie in general. So, this movie does bounce around time periods a fair amount, but for the most part outside of a few other locales, including literal hell, this is happening in the fictional city of Kahndaq Basin Asia. And while we don't jump around as much as Eternals time period-wise, the past storyline never did a ton for me until the eventual end reveal. But there are other questions I have with the overall Black Adam personality, a character I pretty much know only from the Injustice game storylines and maybe a few TV show things. I guess I feel like we as viewers, no matter what Hawkman whines about, we all know at the end of the day, The Rock portraying Black Adam is an anti-hero, when I feel like I more wanted him to be a true villain. Sympathetic, sure, but like a villain. I guess I was really hoping for more of a Magneto portrayal of a man with a cause that is just and you care about and it's like relatable and all that stuff. But it just breaks all the laws of morality that heroes won't to meet those goals and save those people who, you know, need the help of someone who is morally gray and can fix things that a standard hero maybe won't, right? I wonder if people watching this realize that The Rock was clearly the dad in the flashbacks and not the kid who became Black Adam, or as he was eventually called, like at the end of the movie. But like Skinny Rock, without showing his face, was still very obviously voiced by The Rock. Did anyone else like not get that? I wonder if like people watched and didn't like immediately pick up on it. His voice is so recognizable. Like the dad was the one who was Black Adam in the end, like had to be. There was no shot it was anything else. Also, fun to see one more tie to the Shazam movie characters. You know, like we expect Black Adam and Shazam to eventually meet up, but having the original wizard played by Jaimin Hansu is here, you know, and it's great to see like just connective tissue still is a thing with this DC thing, and he's doing the same thing, granting powers and all that stuff. Neat touch, but the one thing about all this history we see, so much of it is shown off and like eventually corrected or shown in its entirety. And obviously, we have seen this before, and it kind of works as a neat enough mystery element of, oh, here's what you said happened, but here's what really happened. But sometimes it just feels a bit annoying to be lied to. At least that's how it comes off for so long of this movie and so deep into it. Some of these story beats may feel familiar, not just to superhero movies, but movies of the past overall. You can, like, it's, I think, impossible to not feel some similar but less interesting vibes from this that, like, okay, we've had archaeologists looking for stuff that leads to ancient powers that are just now superhero things. The Moon Knight show that came out did a pretty good job with it. The 2016 non-air cut version of Suicide Squad gave us the real one, James Gunn, as archaeology stuff too. And that one jumps all over the place too. Imagine if that was a chronological edit, which I think is part of the air cut. So here's hoping. It's all fine. It just at times, this movie feels so familiar to some people. Yeah, the power is not always discovered in the tomb. Sometimes it's an item. This time it's a person. It's not just a power. This is a person with power, so it kind of combines a bunch of stuff. Also, this does lead to your kind of standard fish out of water story once we get The Rock bopping out and about in this world, a world that he has no recollection about or doesn't seem familiar, but it's modern Kondak with the military occupation of just some generic bad guys. So when he does get loose, he starts serving up some violent AF justice, and they put in some work with those scenes. I mean, he's melting people, throwing them all over the place. Like, I was all about seeing things a bit more brutal than most superhero movies, because makes sense. His character is more of an anti-hero, not unlike Deadpool. Now, do I think they should have for sure just made him more of a sympathetic villain as opposed to any sort of anti-hero? Yeah, I really do. But we can't change that. Same thing. If it was an R-rated movie, maybe that would have been a little better. I mean, they've done it for some Suicide Squad, so they could have done it here if he's kind of a badder guy, right? That's the thought. But after a lot of things happen, real brief introductions to a whole new, unexplained, or previously mentioned group of heroes, the Justice Society. Now, not only is this non-Justice League group just never spoken about before, they're also somewhat under control of Amanda Waller. Look, we love seeing more of Viola Davis. There are just a lot of questions. I don't think she's the leader of this group necessarily, but she clearly has some managerial status and could send this second group under her charge to go do missions, not unlike all of her Suicide Squad stuff. These are hero characters that she can't force to do things by putting bombs on their necks, I think. So from an overall DCU thing, there's some confusion from things that we thought were true, things that are unexplained, and like just the linear storyline is kind of missing a grander version of it. But that's to be expected, hopefully smoothened out soon enough. You will hear my whole rant on this soon enough. While some of these characters are not super inspiring, the younger versions of heroes we've heard of but never met, and Hawkman has never done it for me in any medium, right? His brief Justice League animated stuff or the Legends of Tomorrow stuff, he just never had a lot to do in most of my media. And this version, while there's obviously a more important role that exists for him because he's the leader of this group, everyone in this movie, just comparison-wise, is going to pale to what cool things Dr. Fate has. And while he and Pierce Brosnan play a big and strong role in this movie, that does lead us to some questions. So Dr. Fate and his helmet works in a way where he's allowed to use it because some other being allows him to, Nobu. He is supposedly stuck wearing this helmet and has this constant consult voice in the helmet, for a lot of stuff. And that's, I guess, how the character's supposed to work and what I was used to, right? In this movie, though, he's very casually taking the helmet off, through the whole thing. And look, I love seeing more Pierce Brosnan, but there's a question. And when someone else got to use the helmet so casually, it worked from a story needing it to work perspective, but it was not a great thing. That just didn't make sense for Dr. Fate lore and stuff. And obviously the lore has changed in superhero things and adaptations all the time. Just putting it out there was a little odd. That being said, I'm not critiquing Dr. Fate or Pierce Brosnan in this because those are the best parts of the movie. The jokes there were pretty good. Having the cool superpowers. Visually, it was just I don't know. Honestly, I expected him to be the wise leader of the group instead of this more closed-minded Hawkeye, which I get it, right? The black and white view versus a more kind of gray view is the challenge and the foil to Black Adam. But gosh, they made Hawkeye so annoying. Hawkeye, Hawkman, right? I don't know how many times I've said it already. You got to be careful because, you'll start thinking as a Jeremy Renner Arrow guy and not this flying guy with a big old mace. But, Hawkman and Black Adam are obviously out of sorts, right? They don't like each other. They have different perspectives, and they're gonna have some fight stuff. Most people are getting clocked, right? Like Black Adam's taking everyone out, Hawkman, all that stuff. But Dr. Fate has, as usual, just really cool powers here, and the whole discovery of Black Adam not just being some hero, which is obviously to some, he's not just, right, like an omnipresent hero. Like when people watch Spider-Man Far From Home and actually, like, if they're surprised Mysterio's a Spider-Man villain, that he's actually a villain in the MCU, like no matter how he was presented initially in the MCU, you kind of knew he was going to be a villain. And same with Black Adam, right? I get that he's something different, but he's a villain, so it's weird to think that he'd be portrayed any other way, regardless of what the movie's trying to put out there for you. Throughout this movie, seeing The Rock learn to do certain things and kind of catch up on the times from this kid and his mom, like, I will say, this always felt like a big distraction from where we wanted to be in these movies. In the same way that it was fun watching The Rock fry random military people and, really not be the hero character, the true, man in the red cape hero. Because, like, he really is not that Black Adam. I just never cared for, the main villain in this. Like, I feel that The Rock should have been the main villain of his own movie, right? And instead, they threw this other guy through who was kind of bland, even when he went, like, through his own mythical transformation to be, the true foil for Black Adam. And maybe I already talked about this, but the goal of this movie was to introduce us as an audience to Black Adam, show that he's a bit of a killer who isn't just another Shazam or Superman, but still make him somewhat of a humanized hero to root for. So by the end of this movie, he's the ruler of this region, Kondak, and the people love him, and he is less stoic and now knows some pop culture references. Neat. But every time this became a family story, I was just a bit disappointed and kind of bored in those moments. Like, even being aware of the goal of this movie was to make you root for Black Adam and tie this community with this kid representing his dead son and make it all relatable and connected. I get it, but still just at times for me. Like, teaching Black Adam random stuff from this kid that did not matter was groan worthy to me, at least. I did like all the scenes with him fighting with and against the Justice Society, even if they just kind of came out of nowhere in the continuity of the overall story. Now, the villain initially is just some guy who wants to have this evil, mythical crown thing. He gets it and gets killed, all done. The Rock feels bad for, like, partially hurting a kid, and then they lock him up in the DC movies version of the Raft from the MCU on, like, life support. Kind of like that one scene from Blade. I'm pretty sure. Remember those movies? Gosh, I need that new one ASAP. I hope, and I have just so much pent-up hope and excitement for that spookier, hopefully R-rated Marvel movie, especially after Werewolf by Night, right? And when the not Amanda Waller-led Suicide Squad drops off Black Adam, we get another, kind of longer-term enough DC cameo. As far as quick other DCU, I guess I mean DC Universe now. Gosh, it sounds better, but I have to keep used to saying it now after all these years. There's a few cameo moments. There's a huge one and a neat one. The neat one is Jennifer Holland coming back to be here after Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad role she had, Amelia Harcourt. This movie does set up a soft tease to more content from the Squad and obviously Peacemaker's whole thing in general. And there's an equally small but cool Viola Davis uncredited role here too. We will get to the big one by the end, though. We'll get there. But before that, this is probably one of the weirder parts of the movie. The idea of having to imprison Black Adam makes sense a little bit, but not nearly enough. I get it. He hurts people and feels bad, and they slightly don't trust him. But even though he didn't really do a ton of things wrong, either in the past or the future, the stuff never made sense in the movie, and obviously it comes back to bite them all. Through all this stuff, Hawkman is just super lame, and he's just this righteous jerk who is super morally rigid. Like, the two younger teen superheroes add very little, if anything. But Pierce Brosnan has a place for some humor. He has this almost sage-like role, and he has a compelling secondary goal to save his friend, even though he sucks, Hawkman. I have to check myself, like I said. I already did it once in this episode. Can't be calling him Hawkeye anymore. But like, you cared about Dr. Fate more than any character, Black Adam included. But I had this nagging feeling that somehow that was going to be a problem. The reason I had that nagging feeling, like, this movie just kind of felt like, oh, it's retirement age for me. He thought he could kind of change some time things around, and this is a cool character and his first movie role in live action at all. And the only way he's going to be in future projects is going to be like crazy time travel or parallel universe mumbo jumbo magic, which all exists, or they could just be a different Dr. Fate played by a different person, like the second version. They do that all the time in superhero things. But when he dies, like, he's showing off all sorts of crazy, visually cool magic powers, all the while waking up Black Adam and getting him out to save the day. You kind of wish this guy would be in, more of these movies going forward instead of killing him off in the first one. He was nuanced, powerful, and actually fun to watch. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate was really good. In general, he's pretty good in just about everything. Mamma Mia, James Bond, this movie, and for a deeper cut, check out the AMC 2-season Western show, The Sun. Not a lot of Westerns out there, where he's the lead in that too. Well, I think this is one of the worst DCEU and DC Universe villains, newly branded, through this continuity. How he came to be was kind of fun, having to bait our reluctant anti-hero into killing him so he can go to literal hell and get some Shazam-like powers. There'll be criticisms of villains just being dark versions of our heroes with the exact same power. Iron Man, Ironmonger, Superman, General Zod, now this. The only ones I can think of that are kind of inverse, right? You had Wonder Woman 1984 and Pedro Pascal, right? You could say the Cheetah thing was there too, but kind of different. I haven't seen that movie in ages because I kind of was not my favorite. But it's cool when there's a different, or, not just two sides of the same coin power. And something that I guess it feels like X-Men always nail. Maybe not like Wolverine and Sabretooth, but there's a lot of ones in general that are kind of not just evil versions of the same people. Like the big one, of course, Magneto and Professor X. It will always be cool for mixing up this formula. But even if it was more of the same, at least how this ne'er-do-well got his evil powers was kind of cool. So this was a problem in Thor 4 for me, and there's a problem here too. More of a problem in Thor 4, though. When a bunch of kids just get superpowers, it kind of feels unearned and weird. It feels a bit better here when the people finally stand up to, fight for their country, right? Even if in this case it's against random hellspawns and not like the people who are occupying their country. Weird. It comes, from this annoying kid, though, and it just felt cheesy. And maybe I don't like placing so much emphasis on a regular kid to save people from supernatural demon soldiers and galvanizing everyone. I just feel like a lot of things boil down to how they went about trying to humanize Black Adam, making him the ruler. None of that really worked for me. I was fine with The Rock and how his character existed, just outside of that whole semi-major plot point character development arc. So, this villain is just a generic, CGI baddie demon who adds little to the narrative once he exists, period. And while I hate how he's defeated, I love Black Adam going to town on him. Like, he rips him in half. That part was crazy and cool. And that is what we need from what should be, as a villain kind of character, but is trying to be an anti-hero here. I don't love how Hawkman casually gets Dr. Fate's helmet after getting killed. And he can use it. One of the things that pissed me off about the whole concept of that magical item, that would be like Justin Hammer being able to pick up Thor's hammer in the MCU. Also, remember Sam Rockwell's dance in Iron Man 2? Terrible movie. Super fun acting by Sam Rockwell. But to this movie, I enjoyed parts. The Rock and Pierce Brosnan were fun. The visuals were mostly cool. The more aggressive power usage from Black Adam was fun. And I'm, of course, happy with the end goal of Black Adam kind of ruling over Kondak. All that's fine. It just took some weird detours and choices to get us to there on a bit of a bumpy road. And, of course, the not Dr. Fate existing anymore kind of stunk. So, it's finally time for the big one. The biggest one has to be here. No disrespect to anyone else in this movie, but without question, it was amazing to see Cavill back as the Man of Steel after the vague references to him in Shazam, Peacemaker, and the Suicide Squad. It's quick, but gosh, it's nice and good, and just it's long overdue. I really hope the rumors of kind of keeping this whole thing kind of together with him here and Affleck and Aquaman 2 now are all a good sign. Release the Air cut trended again recently enough on Twitter, and all the new leadership again makes me hopeful. Maybe we'll get some of those Snyderverse Justice League things. I don't know, TBD on whether, anything's happening with the Flash, and maybe this Michael Keaton Batman return. Also, rip to Kevin Conroy, one of the truest Batmen, not only of my childhood with the animated shows, but later on too with those stellar Arkham games that need to get on Switch ASAP. And as normal games, not those weird cloud ones. I hate that that's become a default thing. So, to Superman things though, that does mean the Witcher show will have to say goodbye to Cavill after season 3 of Netflix. And while that is a bummer, and it will be weird to see Liam Hemsworth as Geralt of Rivia, I will happily make that trade. Also, any way that we can bring back that Batgirl movie with Brendan Fraser, come on, right? I was so excited to see him as Firefly. And, just kind of bring in some of the DC Universe fan stuff back with the new leadership of James Gunn and Peter Safran. Give us everything that Marvel does with all these movies and specials and Disney Plus shows. But to take a quick break from Marvel, we'll get back to, don't worry. Where does this latest and first of the DCU brand of movies clock in on Letterboxd? So I thought about this a bit, and it helped taking a little bit of a pause after watching immediately where I put it, because I probably had it a little high to start. I had it at 3.5 stars. We're going to go 3, right smack dab in the middle, 3 out of 5, because cool action, Pierce Brosnan was good, overall visuals were cool, The Rock definitely had some cool moments as Black Adam, but so much of the movie was just fine. I think you could enjoy this movie, but to answer your question and my question I posed way back in the beginning, if you're like The Rock, you'll be fine with this. If you like Pierce Brosnan, you'll be fine with this until the end. Fun movie, but is it the second coming of the DC movies universe? Probably not yet. I think we're going to have to wait till something else. I don't even know if Shazam 2 will have it. And I like that first movie. I just, we might have to wait to the next Aquaman to really feel like things are coming back, especially if we can find more ties to, the whole collective of Batman and Superman played by those initial DCEU character castings. And look, bring back the Air cut. Come on, guys. And maybe, film some stuff that I don't think they said they just needed special effects. Not even many. It wasn't like the Snyder cut for Justice League. It doesn't need much fine-tuning, but I know there was little talks of maybe Wonder Woman's in this end. There's a little more of how she caught Adam Beecher's character Slipknot, and maybe there was going to be a Steppenwolf tie to that's who kind of gave powers to Enchantress, and that could have been a soft tease to Justice League and kind of keeps things connected. Maybe film a few things there. I'm getting on a tangent, but this stuff gets me a little riled up. So that's the episode, though. And fret not, we're coming with another episode soon enough, having just seen Black Panther 2, regardless of some kids being pretty obnoxious in the movie theater, where we were able to see Black Panther 2. So we'll have to discuss and see how Marvel follows up a very good solo outing and a few team-up appearances and make something that has to not only tell its own story, but help the real-world signing events for its leading man in Chadwick Boseman. So we'll have to check that out together. So that's all the time we have for you today. So cheers, and as always, until next time, Cinephiles.
Are you not entertained?
I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I don't like goodbyes. Let's just call this see you later, alligator.